Hello, and welcome to the Blackstone Solicitors channel. Today we're exploring a topic that often causes confusion and sometimes serious disputes between landlords and tenants. What exactly is a breach of lease covenant? If you rent or let out commercial or residential property, understanding what lease covenants are and what happens when they're breached can help you avoid costly problems later on. So, let's break it down clearly and simply. A lease is more than just an agreement to rent a property. It's a legally binding contract between a landlord and a tenant that sets out not only the length of the tenancy and the rent, but also the responsibilities of both sides. These responsibilities are known as covenants. Think of covenants as the promises or obligations contained in the lease. Some are made by the tenant, others by the landlord, and they can cover all sorts of things, from paying rent on time and keeping the property in good repair, to allowing quiet enjoyment or maintaining building insurance. When one of those promises is broken, that's what we call a breach of covenant. For example, if a tenant fails to pay rent, makes unauthorized alterations to the premises, or uses the property for a purpose not permitted under the lease, that would be a breach of covenant. Likewise, landlords can also be in breach. If a landlord fails to carry out necessary repairs they're responsible for, or interferes with a tenant's right to use the property peacefully, that can equally amount to a breach. Now, leases can be full of legal jargon, so it's easy to overlook the detail. But those details matter. Imagine agreeing to rent a shop, only to find out later that you're not actually allowed to use it as a cafe because the lease restricts the permitted use. If you go ahead and open anyway, you're breaching a covenant, and that could lead to serious consequences. The consequences depend on the nature of the breach and what the lease says. For tenants, the most serious risk is forfeiture. This means the landlord may have the right to end the lease and take back possession of the property. However, in most cases, landlords must follow strict legal procedures before doing so, such as serving a formal notice, and tenants often have the right to apply for relief from forfeiture, which can allow them to keep the lease if they put things right quickly. In other situations, a breach might result in the landlord claiming damages or taking legal action to force the tenant to comply with the lease terms. For landlords, breaches can also be costly. If a landlord fails to meet their obligations, the tenant might be entitled to compensation or, in serious cases, even end the lease. At Blackstone Solicitors, we often help both landlords and tenants resolve disputes over alleged breaches of covenant. Sometimes it's a genuine misunderstanding, other times it's a serious issue that needs careful negotiation or even court action. Whatever the situation, early legal advice is always the key. The longer a breach goes unresolved, the harder and more expensive it can be to fix. If you're a landlord, regular inspections, clear communication, and properly drafted lease terms can prevent most problems before they arise. And if you're a tenant, always read and understand your lease before signing. If something isn't clear, ask questions or get advice, because once you've signed, those obligations are binding. So, to sum up, a breach of lease covenant happens when one party fails to keep a promise made in the lease. It could be as simple as missing a rent payment, or as complex as carrying out major works without consent. Either way, it's important to act quickly and seek professional advice before the issue escalates. At Blackstone Solicitors, we're experienced in dealing with lease disputes of all kinds, from negotiating solutions to taking decisive legal action when necessary. If you're facing a potential breach of covenant, or just want to make sure your lease is watertight, we're here to help. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more legal insights, and get in touch with our team if you'd like advice tailored to your situation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.